Good morning and welcome to the Missouri Evergreen Basic Cataloging course. My name is Greg Whitmore, the Consortium Cataloger, and in this video I am going to show you how to add a simple holding to a record. As catalogers, we're going to be adding holdings all the time, and ideally we want to add that holding to a record that's already in the system. So first thing we need to do is actually see if we can find the resource in question in Missouri Evergreen. So to do that, I'm going to go into cataloging, and I'm going to search the catalog. I actually have the ISBN here. So I'm going to go in and do a numeric search for the ISBN. And here's the book that I actually want to add this holding to. So far, so good. So we click into the title. We can see that we only have one other library that actually owns a copy of this, and we're going to add our holdings to it. So to do that, we come over here to the Add Holdings button, and then we're going to start filling out this form, the holdings editor. We need to actually put in, at the very first, the correct owning library that's going to have this. In this case, I'm adding it to the Ray County Library, so I can do a search for Ray and pull it up right there. Depending on your situation, you may not have to fill that in because it may be filled in previously for your library, but I have kind of a wider scope than that, so I have to do searches. In this case, over in classification, I'm going to change this to the Dewey Decimal System because it's a nonfiction book. And I'm going to type in the Dewey call number that I have. Now I'm going to give it a barcode. For training purposes, I'm just going to put in train 031. Then I want to come down here into the holdings editor, and I'm going to modify each one of these fields for this specific book. So, do I want this item to circulate? Why, yes, I do. And you can see that you have two options there. The status for this book is going to be available. I want people to be able to check it out. The circulating library has to match the owning library up here. So again, I can come in here and do a search and actually find the library that I'm looking for. Coming over here to the reference, is this book a reference book? It is not, so I'm going to click on no. In the shelving location, this is going to tell both the staff and the patrons where this book can be found in the library. These are extensive lists, so again, make sure that you're finding the actual place where this library is and that the code is going to be there that matches the library that owns it. In this case, since we're looking at adult nonfiction, I'm going to come clear up here to adult nonfiction, and then I'm going to look for the actual code that corresponds to the library that I'm adding it to. And with any luck, I'll find what I'm looking for. Okay. Coming over to OPAC Visible, do we want this book to be able to be seen by the patron? Yes, we do. That's the whole point of cataloging. The circulation modifier talks about what type of material this actually is. And as you can see, we have numerous options that are available to us. In this case, it's just going to be a book. Coming over into price, this is how much it's going to cost the library to replace this book, or possibly how much the patron is going to be charged to replace this book should it be lost or damaged or anything. In this case, it's $20. Coming over to the other side of the screen under loan duration, we have a couple of options. It can either be a short or extended one. For most books, it's probably just going to be your normal loan duration, whatever that is. The acquisition cost is going to be very specific to a book and to the library policies themselves. The book may cost $20 to replace, but if you worked out a deal with the vendor, you may have gotten it for like $15, which would go in there. Typically, I leave this one blank because it's going to be very dependent on what the library is doing and whether they want this field filled out or not. Circulation as type is going to kind of match the circulation modifier. If we click the drop down arrow, we can see that we have several materials here that we can choose for this particular item, and of course it's a book. Coming over into the holdable field, do we want this book to be able to be put on hold by patrons? The answer is yes. Scrolling down a little bit, we come over to where we're talking about the deposit. In most cases, especially for books, I would think that there's not going to be a deposit required for patrons to check it out. This could be dependent on the type of checkout it is, though. Instead of a book, if maybe we're talking equipment, maybe hotspots or a telescope or a fishing pole or whatever, the library may require a deposit for those type of checkouts. But again, in this case, the answer is going to be no. Because I didn't put a deposit required here, I'm not going to put a deposit amount over into this field as well. Coming into age-based hold protection, this is actually a drop-down that'll put a hold on this particular book for a few months depending on the status of the book. A lot of libraries use this for either brand new books that they've just gotten or bestsellers. Using this prevents other libraries from requesting it until that time frame has elapsed. Because this is an older book, I'm going to leave it at the default, which is none. Coming over here into quality, we need to decide at the point of cataloging whether this particular resource is in good shape or if it's damaged. I would say a good portion of the time it's going to be good. I can't imagine that we would have a damaged copy that we're going to lend out to people. So I would say keep that as good. Coming over to the other side of the screen again, we find the fine level. There are 3 levels of fines that you can use in Missouri Evergreen. As far as I know, everybody's going to use normal. Again, that might be dependent on the type of resource it is and what your library's policy is. So you just want to make sure you're checking with people. From here on out, each of these fields can be filled out based on this particular resource and what the library really wants to do. You know, do you have some item notes that you want to put in or alerts that you want to be made? Is this floating, which only a couple of libraries actually have a field for? Do you want to put in any item tags? Are there some statistical categories that you want to look at? Again, these are all going to be very, very specific to the library in question, what the policies are, and this particular resource. So for this video, I'm not going to fill any of those out. I just wanted you to be aware that they're there. Once we get past that, we can see where we've got very specific libraries that may have some information that they want put in here. Your library may be listed in here. Maybe this is something you want to track for a particular item. By all means, go ahead. If none of these apply, you're just going to skip them and leave them the way they are. Once you've gotten through all those fields and you've gotten down to the bottom of the list, go ahead and hit Save and Exit. And occasionally this doesn't show up the way it should, so I'm going to do a refresh really quick. And you can see at the very bottom of the screen now, my holding is there. I've got the call number, the barcode that I gave it. It's available for checkout. It's in the adult nonfiction, and it's ready to go. So that's all there is to adding a holding. I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.